No, I do not. I do not have anything negative to say about Pascal Siakam's performance tonight. Obviously, with everyone else just not going, there's just not a lot of shooters right now for the Raptors. He just took it on himself, put the team on his back. Um, Thaddeus Young, incredible. Just a brilliant performance. I think he was just exactly what I talked about in that little mix. He was the glue guy. He was all over the place, getting on the glass. The Raptors defense, putting that team in the zone. I mean, yeah, Quickly had a hell of a night from three, but he is the 32% shooter. You will roll with that a little bit. I liked RJ Barrett's game. Julius Randle, kind of got a little bit out of control near the end. Isaiah Hartenstein, wow. Like, I really wanted this guy on the Raptors, and he is a shell of himself. Like, the guy that I saw on the Clippers last year and this guy, it's just night and day. The Raptors were undersized tonight. Randall is a load. Mitchell is a load. Hartenstein is a load, right? And they were just smaller up front, and it was very difficult to match up, especially with the starting lineup that they rolled out with. But they banked on it. It won. The zone really scrambled them. Now Scotty Barnes. I mean, this is the second performance in a row where Nick Nurse has chosen to sort of ride without him going into the fourth, and then just sort of plugged him into the fourth. Last game, I was very critical of that. I don't think that you should sit someone for so long and then put them back in the game. They're out of rhythm, and justified or not, he was out of the game because he was shooting 1 for 10, right? This was not a great game for Scotty Barnes on the offensive end. He looked a little bit passive after he went 1 for 10. Maybe he just knew he didn't have it and he needed to pass it on. But you just can't be out there if you're not a threat to score. Like, you're making life so much harder for the rest of your team. So I think on some level, he tried to give you what he could on the glass, tried to make some cool plays. There were some nice assists there. But overall, this is 2 games in a row. Nick Nurse goes to him in the fourth quarter. He does plug him in. And then Julius Randle grabs that offensive rebound, and it's a quick hook for Scotty Barnes. When's the last time you saw that? And we didn't see this ever last year. So this was, to say the least, disturbing. It was a disturbing performance. And I'm not going to be some body language expert. I'm not going to tell you what is going through the minds or what's going on in the locker room. But what I am going to say is that the streak is over. Now, quickly to those of you who want to call in, please do call in and just, line up the queue. I'm excited to know what you guys have to think about the game, because I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts. I do want to say that this was a do or die game. I'd spent all day pretty much talking about how if this is a loss right now, based on the coming schedule that's going up, the Raptors are in serious risk pretty much of losing the season. And I stick by that. Had they gone down 13-19, you could read my community post about it. The odds of coming back and even being a 45-win team become so astronomical that you would almost have to play at a 60-win pace to get there. It becomes daunting. However, they usually say don't make too much out of one game, but this game swings the math so much that it almost salvages the season for 2 more games. So I guess what I'll say is that the Raptors lived to fight another day. This was a gutsy win on the road against a very hot team, incredibly hot team, that was riding an 8-game winning streak. And I really hope they can continue it. And I really hope that whatever funk Scotty Barnes is in, whatever's going on within that offense, if it's health, whether it's just whatever it is, whether it's chemistry, whether it's health, whether it's just a slump, I really hope he gets out of it soon, because the Raptors do need him to be a scoring threat. They can't have him going 1 for 10. And, it's a miracle. Undermanned, right? Considerably undermanned. No Precious Achiuwa, no Otto Porter Jr. To go out with Fred VanVleet, kind of doing that old, bet on myself thing. To pull out this win with some of the performances you had is almost a feat of, like, I don't know. What are the odds of this performance turning out the way that it did and the Raptors winning? I think it's like 1 in 200. So this was an incredible win. Right now we have Coach Mo. Okay, Mo, what's going on?
I'm good, man.
First, I want to say
about Malachi Flynn playing. I think it's kind of ironic that Coach Nurse never really played this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, there's the thing with his dad. And now Nurse is kind of coaching for his life, I guess, because the young guys aren't playing. So clearly, he's playing to win. Like, it's evident. There's a short leash on Koloko. Barnes isn't ending games. And you got Flynn playing because he's playing well and he's helping you win. So I just find it ironic that the guy you never played is now the guy you're relying on to help you stop
Well,
the losing
he
streak.
changes everything, right? And I'll tell you who he changes everything for. He changes everything for Siakam, right? You have okay. So first of all, I just want to get this out of the way because don't anyone accuse me of hate, okay? Please. The Knicks have nobody who can guard Pascal Siakam. This is one of the 4 teams in the league that I'm like absolutely positive there is no one on the roster who is even remotely capable of hanging with this guy. There is nobody. There's not even like a guy at the end of the bench where they could have been like, okay, we'll roll with it and start him. Nope, not a single person. The Sixers have Thibault. You know, every team has one guy that you could, one or two, sometimes 3 guys, right? Like if you were facing Portland, I would throw Jeremy Grant on him and have him,
Yep.
you know, have a hard night. Jeremy Grant's not a lockdown defender, but it would make his life at least. It wouldn't result in blow by after blow by after blow by.
Yep.
I'm surprised the Knicks continue to play single coverage on him. However, the reason they're not able to double partly is because of Malachi. And kudos to Nick Nurse for realizing that. I swear to God, I went through it in when we were showing the film. If you recall, at the beginning of the live, I think like two lives ago, we were showing the film and we were showing like how much spacing there was for Scotty Barnes to attack in that Brooklyn game. If you recall, Scotty Barnes just going down the middle. Siakam did the exact same thing that Barnes did in Brooklyn, but this time he did it to New York. And it was like identical play after play after play where he's just like exploiting the middle and they can't really collapse because you got 4 shooters with him. The only non-shooter really they were playing was Thad, and they put Thad in the dunker spot. But so often this team is playing 2 non-shooters, and that's where you get into trouble, right? Kudos to Siakam for also being willing to move off the ball. He was a little ball dominant, but he had it going when he was ball dominant. I didn't have an issue with anything he did tonight. But the one thing I'll say is like if OG isn't hitting those threes the way he's hitting them now, like he's at least taking them with a lot of confidence. And Malachi isn't a threat to score because the scouting report says 47, 48% three-point shooter. You got to stick with this guy or he's going to burn you. If that isn't part of the scheme when he's on the court, to be honest, and if Malachi isn't willing to take those shots or if Siakam is not willing to pass to Malachi or OG or Fred, then this doesn't work. But playing with 3 shooters around Siakam, that's ideal. You need to play that way.
Also, I noticed something early in the second quarter when we had some separation before we gave up that lead. It was an 8-0 run early in the second. And I don't want to harp on Fred, but Fred was on the bench. Also, OG was on the bench. Also, Barnes was on the bench. We just play faster. And there's this thing, and I haven't coached for very long, but there's this thing where when somebody grabs the ball and they can bring it up the court and everyone just runs up the court and you just go. There's this thing Fred does that really annoys me, and I've mentioned it before, where like Barnes will get the rebound and he'll go up to him and clap his hands instead of just, we got to go. Our half-court offense is a struggle as it is most of the time. We just need to play faster. We need to get up the court. And I think like we play faster without him. Pascal handles the ball more. One thing I like about Pascal, he doesn't care who brings the ball up the court. OG doesn't care who brings the ball up the court. Flynn doesn't care who brings the ball up the court. Barnes doesn't care who brings the ball up the court. But for some reason, Fred does this thing where he wants to get the ball off a rebound. He asks for it. And when you ask for the ball, you're in a stationary position. And then he walks it up the court. And then we never get these mismatches. We never get cross matchup. We never get a guy creating a lane because he's running up the court. I feel like it's just, that's why I think when we were playing against when he was out and we were playing the Spurs and I think a couple other teams and we had like big margins of victory and we were playing so fast because people will get the ball and they just go. They dish it out ahead. No one's thinking of themselves as a traditional point guard that I gotta John Stockton this thing, you know?
Hmm. Well, I mean, I will say that that's sort of who Fred VanVleet is. And I mean, I don't think he's going to change. I mean, he tried to change at the beginning of the year. He struggled a lot with it. And, again, basketball is a game of rhythm. You know that.
Yes.
So holding the ball, handling the ball allows somebody to dictate the rhythm of the game. And, you and I could probably say that Fred VanVleet is probably not the right guy to dictate the game or dictate the rhythm, and he slows things down. However, I will say that sometimes, when you play too fast, you can give up really, really
I agree. I agree.
big,
I
big,
agree.
big leads, especially on the road. That's one thing I'll say. I would rather play fast at home and be a little bit more conservative on the road. That's just how I see it, because like a dunk at home, giving up a breakaway dunk, because there was a pass that Pascal Siakam threw and it resulted in like a 3-on-1 breakaway the other way. And I mean, if that results in a dunk, I don't think it results in a dunk. I think it was a layup. But if that results in a breakaway on your court, like in Toronto, it's not that big a deal, right? But you could see the game completely shifted around that mark. It was like 2 possessions before Scotty came back into the game when the game started to shift, and it was because the crowd really got into it. So if Fred VanVleet is, for all of his flaws as a player, he is a plus shooter, even though he's not
Yes.
shooting that well right now.
And a plus
So he
defender.
provides a lot of that spacing, and he's also pretty good at taking care of the ball.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
I
I
get I
agree.
get why Nurse kind of scheme related trusts him a lot, but you know, yeah. So yes, I do think the Raptors would play faster. If Scotty and Pascal, or Banton, Flynn, etc. Um, yeah, I think they'd play faster if those guys initiated the offense. But Fred VanVleet is probably like one of your slower players
I
at
just
this
would
point.
prefer if we just brought it up the court quicker, and if there's nothing, you go into your half court offense. But I think there's just opportunities missed walking it up the court
I think
every
there's
single
also
time.
there's also to some extent, Raptors play players very large minutes, like huge minutes. Sometimes you're running starters out for 41, 42 minutes. Sometimes, and not to mention, you have a scrambling defense that requires so much energy. So if you're going to go balls out,
Yeah, I
running
agree.
transition
No,
every
I know. I
single,
know.
you're going to have no legs in the fourth quarter. All your shots are going to go flat. So yeah. Anyways, Mo, thanks a lot for calling in. Do you have any final takeaways?
Yeah, I also don't know. It was funny listening to the broadcast crew, especially Matt Devlin, celebrating this win. And I'm just rolling my eyes, thinking, okay, like it's the stuff you said, and I agree completely. It's like this: we're not in the situation Chicago's in. Like we're in a better situation than Chicago's in,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like we're doing all this. Okay, we got to win. We're not playing Barnes in crunch time. We're not playing Coloco, so we're the development is kind of halting because we're in a losing streak because we desperately need to win. Okay, we win a couple games. Our best case
Right.
scenario. You know what I mean? It's just like you kind
Well,
of roll
here's
your eyes at
here's
this.
here's what I like. Okay, so here's the thing: if I was coaching right today, I would not have brought Scotty back in the game at all.
Sure, sure.
I don't think he had it. Like his energy was not right on defense. His shot is not going in. 1 for 10. He started the game 0 for 4 within the first six
Layups,
minutes,
layups.
right? And like whatever it is, I don't really care. It doesn't matter. It's not helping you win, right?
Mhm,
He's not
mhm.
like helping you win right now. I mean, I know his passing is incredible, and he's 21. So this is not like saying Scotty is not going to be one of the top 10 players in the NBA at some point. He definitely will be, in my opinion. However, tonight is about tonight. And here's the thing: what I don't like about a lot of young teams in the NBA is playing time is not earned. I really resent that. I resent the concept that teams are willingly putting out guys like Jalen Green, Cade Cunningham, at times when they are actually, shooting 1 for 10. And frankly, they don't have any sort of accountability. They never go to the bench. They don't have veterans to teach them. And again, like we saw Kobe have to earn it. Like he had to earn it on defense with Phil Jackson. So I think that it's good that Nick Nurse is willing to hold Scotty accountable. I think it's a good thing that 35 minutes is not guaranteed for a
I
guy
agree.
who's
No, I
not
agree. I
playing
agree.
well, right?
I
So,
don't know if he's in a position to succeed necessarily in the role he's given. I'm not
oh,
saying
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
because
Look,
like
he's
right now
not.
he's a screen setting big. Like that's basically what he was used for today. He had some ball handling responsibilities, but he's setting a lot of screens. He's standing in the corner, and I'm not saying feature him right away, but I'm like you gotta give him something to succeed at. Maybe even like stagger him and Fred a little bit more to give him more ball handling duties. But
honestly, man, like I think one of the things that would probably kill his image, but would probably help his game, is bringing him off the bench. It would help him a lot. I think it would allow him to get a rhythm for the game. And, it wouldn't be any sort of like, oh my God, it's a demotion or anything like that. I'm sure he wouldn't be pleased with it. But he wants to play a certain way. You can obviously tell because he tries to do that every single time he has the ball. He tries to play a certain way, right? If the ball is going ISO, hero ball, he'll be the one guy who's going to find you backdoor for a cut, and he's going to be like really clapping about it. I again, he's 21 years old. I completely empathize. This is not shade on Scotty, obviously. I completely understand why he's struggling. I see his strengths. This roster around him, the offense, how he's being used, it's not to his strength. However, he was put in a role to screen, roll, cut to the basket, etc. last year, and he seemed to perform admirably at it. Now, it's not an ideal role for him, but when you're shooting 1 for 10, you're not exactly doing yourself any favors. And when you're not like super dialed in on defense, like I'm not saying he was bad on defense today, but he wasn't great, right? And, yeah, so I think it's a good thing. Hopefully it's a sobering moment for him. I think he scored 2 points tonight, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? 2 points, like
it wasn't much.
Right. So if he scores 2 points, I mean, like, this is a guy who cares. Like, one thing I know is that Scotty Barnes is a prideful person. Just like Pascal Siakam, all these guys have pride. So if you're going to roll him out and you're just going to somehow, spoon feed him until he gets his 12, 13, well, then maybe that's not the wake-up call. And maybe, this 2-game stretch, you can clearly see Nurse going to Thad because right now the Raptors are really in desperation mode, right?
Desperate, yeah.
Because the math on this is quite depressing. If you read my community post, you'll see like the odds of coming back and being a top 5 seed at this point are, like, to put this into context for viewers, the Raptors were 16-16 after 32 games in Tampa. They are currently 14-18. So, and I mean, they ended up winning 27 games that year. Granted, because they flopped a lot of those and they had a huge sag after. But with the 5th toughest schedule for the rest of the way, I mean, I got to be honest. Like, if you're betting, I wouldn't bet the over on 42 wins right now.
I wouldn't.
And that's
it took 52 from Siakam, great games from Fred and OG to beat the Knicks on the second night of a back-to-back. And I know people say they are on an 8-game win streak. All that means is a loss is on its way, especially when you're a team of the quality of the Knicks. It's not like it's the Bucks that's on an 8-game win streak or the Celtics that are on an 8-game win streak. It's the Knicks on an 8-game win streak on the second.
I wouldn't undersell the value of feeling good about yourself.
I agree.
Teams that start feeling themselves a little bit, right? It's like
I don't think we solved major issues with this win. I mean, a convincing win, okay, but a win's a win. But I'm just saying, like, I don't think we're out of the doghouse. We're going to Cleveland next.
I don't know. I mean, like, look, we saw, like, tonight we saw a team that blew us out, Golden State, get blown out by Brooklyn.
Yep.
Right? We saw
pretty bad
Boston, which beat us, get blown out by Indiana and then come back late. Right? Tonight was a game of, it was a league of blowouts right now. Everyone got blown out except for us, pretty much, right? So, look, there's a world in which you don't dial in defensively. OG doesn't play balls out. Siakam doesn't scramble. Siakam doesn't go, Jordan, basically, and score 52 points at the Garden, right, against a formidable opponent. Let's be real. If the Knicks had won tonight and the Raptors had lost, the Raptors would be 13-19 and the Knicks would be 19-13. It's a literally inverse relationship. We didn't just beat like the 06 Bobcats, right? Like, we beat a good team at home. And we're the worst. We're one of the worst road teams in the league. So I think credit where credit is due. This was a gutsy win. It took something unsustainable to get there, which I'm worried about, obviously. So I get where you're coming from. It didn't look like it was but
it's not something replicable.
Look, I've seen like 10 or 12 versions of hero ball from Siakam this year. This was the best version I've seen. It's not because he scored the most points. I'm just saying, in terms of where he got his points, in terms of how he scored, this is what you would look for. Now, can he do it against a team that has someone that can actually stop him? Can he do it against doubles? That's the trade-off, because reality is when you dominate the ball as much as he did tonight, no one else is really going to have a great game, right? No one else is really going to get rolling. And that's fine. That's fine if nobody else already has it rolling and you're going. Like, I think that's cool. I think it's good to ride the hot hand. I don't have any issue with Kobe scoring 81 against us. I don't think that's selfish. He had it going. If Kobe shot, 32 for 80, or 32 for 90 when he scored 81, then I have an issue with it. But it was efficient. It was really efficient. I think it was mostly within the flow, and it was desperately needed. There were two periods of this game where the Raptors really, really like fell into a lull, and he just sort of bailed them out. So again, like, we got to be
and the
fair.
calls he was getting, I don't know if that's sustainable.
To be honest, I think a couple of them were completely what the hell, right? There was
I was like he was Michael Jordan in his prime calls. I was shocked.
I agree with you on that one. That one I'll agree with you. There were a couple of ones where Knicks didn't touch them. But
I take it.
But here's the thing: you get those calls when you're aggressive.
Yeah.
When you're actually going into and the other team is complaining to the refs all night, that's how you get those calls, even on the road. Anyways, Mo, thank you so much.
Last thing.
Yeah, what's up?
Nick Nurse is the worst at challenging I've ever seen in my entire life. Like,
well, he did win that 4-point challenge last game, so I feel like he was owed one.
Oh my god.
It's funny, like when Tibbs challenged that one, I was like, that's 100% right. Like, I knew it from looking at it. So
Fred fell before he even got touched.
He kicked his legs out. Yeah. Anyway, Mo, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Take it easy.
Cheers. Okay, if anyone else wants to call in, you got something positive to say, negative to say, I mean, call in. I'll put the link right in the comments there. Let's see some of these comments. No kidding, Randall is such a whiner. Yeah, man, that day may come. Who are you talking to, Robert West? I don't think that's the tone of what I've been saying. Knicks play a similar style to the Raptors, but Toronto is better at things Tibbs wants them to do: hustle, defend, force turnovers, etc. Well, you know what? I was honestly very much considering at the beginning of this at this live, I was going to point a Spider-Man, that Spider-Man meme where all the Spider-Mans are pointing at each other. And it was going to be like Nick Nurse, Tom Thibodeau. I think they have a lot in common as well. I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, like, honestly, I personally, if I'm, if I was coaching, or if I, had a moment to even talk with Siakam, I would tell him that there's usually a reason that players of his ilk, when they have this type of advantage, don't show their hand too early, right? You start dominating the first quarter. Granted, we could argue that his team needed him to go, and but you'll often see that a lot of great players, they kind of turn it on at some point during the game when it might be a little too late. And I think the Raptors may have shown their hands a little too early with how they were going at this, how they were going at the Knicks with Siakam. And I'm really surprised the Knicks did start doubling him in the fourth. You'll see, like, they started sending a second defender, and then he was quick to move it out. And that's where I'm like, that's what made the night for me for Siakam, because there are times in the past where the team will send a second defender or a third defender, which I don't think he's necessarily at that level where he can take on two defenders and just still put up a clean look. And he passed it out. He trusted his teammates. Mainly, he trusted VanVleet and OG Anunoby, but those are the guys that he trusts, and those are the guys who had it going tonight. I don't really see the issue with that. Does nobody have anything to say? Nobody's gonna call in. What's going on, guys? There. Take the bait, guys. Just call in. It's really easy, actually. For those of you who haven't called in, it's super simple. You call in on your phone. You click the link, StreamYard, boom. It's Chrome, Firefox, whatever. It gets you right in. To the specific point of, okay, well, if we'll wait for a call if no one's going to call in. Y'all are going to leave me here. There's 250 people here. None of you guys have a thing to say tonight. I think it's just maybe, okay, we got Chaz. Chaz, I thought you said you weren't watching Raptor games anymore. What happened?
Yeah. I watched the game tonight because another guy's guaranteed to win. So I took
guaranteed to win.
Guaranteed to win, yeah. Guaranteed to win tonight against the Knicks. Eight wins in a row, and we're 6 down in a row. But yeah, like I don't know. I was yelling at the TV. I was yelling at Fred a couple of times tonight. He played well. He got 28 points. He did play this. He plays well, but he just bones it up a couple of times. When he tries to do too much at the wrong times. And maybe there's nobody else that's open. I don't know. He has to force it up. But
I think
I
if
yelled
you're
at
a
the. I
teammate
yelled
of
at the.
his and you want him to stop doing that, then you have to make yourself a formidable offensive option for Nick Nurse to go to, right? Like you can't go
Right.
1 for 10. You can't be passive. You can't be, breaking threes. Look, I think the Raptors had pretty outside of Siakam. I think the Raptors as a whole performed horribly on offense tonight. I think it's a miracle that they won, to be honest, and just being like straight up. Like this takes like if you look at this game objectively and you look at the shot chart and you look at the quality of shots their offense generated, I mean, you can very much argue that like they should have lost this game tonight. The fact that they won pretty much is Herculean performance by Siakam, and he just put him on his back, and that was incredible to have the stamina to do that, and considering how much contact he was taking. I think this is a great game for
He's
him.
Superman. He's Superman. He was Superman tonight. Like, yeah, you're right. He did 41 minutes. He took a lot of bumps and bruises, and he found a way to hoist the shots. He missed it. You could tell his legs were missing for a little bit there. He kind of came flat, but he got a
Yep.
second and third and fourth
But they
win.
got him a good break going
He's
into
so
the
good.
third.
Why can't he bring up the ball, Robert? That's a question I put in the thread earlier. Like why like LeBron James is 38 years old and he's the primary ball handler for the Lakers. I mean, unless the Lakers, I get it, but
And that's also
he's
LeBron James. And also LeBron James is not
well,
the Lakers' best
hey,
player anymore. I think look,
well,
here's the thing. Like when you bring up the ball, you get all the attention, right? So ultimately, if you're asking him to be prime Carmelo or prime Kobe, right? I mean, the only reason those guys brought the ball up was so that the defense couldn't double off the ball to deny them the ball. That's how good they were. Siakam, it's just extra work. Like you're forcing him to, if you just put the ball in his hands, like he's gonna have to get off of it because he's gonna draw a double team probably higher than he wants to. And I actually I prefer him having the ball in transition because I think that he is a scoring threat in transition and he's really fast. But I think sometimes in the half court, it actually helps to have him off the ball, coming off of something, give him a chance to find his place on the floor before he has to, because it's exerting. It exerts energy to have to bring the ball up the court every night.
yeah. But they were doing that last year a little bit. There were 48 wins last year. They had him bringing up the ball for, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 games last year. And they did it a little bit this year earlier on, and they were very effective. And, he's 6'9" or 6'10". He's got great handle. He doesn't have to carry the ball up all the time, but he can see the floor and he can see what develops. And it seems to me when he brings up the ball, they don't get stuck. Like when Fred brings up the ball, today again, a couple of times,
Mm-hmm.
um, Fred didn't play bad tonight. I thought he played good. He made a couple of clutch shots, really clutch shots to win the game. I think the 3 ball that he made near the end there, where they called the timeout,
Right.
was a big number for them. But when the taller guy brings up the ball, and there's been argument that Scotty's not ready for that because he doesn't have a good enough handle. But Pascal obviously has a good
I
enough handle
disagree, but yeah.
to be up there with the ball with only
Mm-hmm.
5 or 6 seconds gone on the 24-second shot clock. I don't care how they get him the ball. They give him the weave and get him the ball. They gets the ball there and they set from there. Then all of a sudden everything else sets in motion because people are looking to have to help. And they leave their guy a little bit, and then everybody else kind of goes, and they have a much more fluid offense when the bigger guy is at the point. Fred can be off ball. Anyway,
Yeah.
it was a good win, and I'm happy. And I felt bad for you because there was nobody wanted to come on. I'm really tired. My dog was in the hospital last night, so
I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope your dog
yeah,
feels
she's
better.
good. She's good. She's okay now. Yeah, she ate a chocolate bar. Chocolate bar. It was not good.
Shit. Yeah, one of my dogs ate a Terry chocolate orange like 3 Christmases ago. It's terrible. All right,
Yeah.
Chaz. Thanks as always.
Take care,
Cheers,
man.
Have a good night.
Talk to you again, right?
See ya.
Have a good show. Right.
Okay. Okay, next up we got Marco. Hang on here. Yep. Marco, what's going on?
Yeah, hi, Robert. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. How are you?
Perfect. How are you doing there?
I'm good.
I wanted to mention a few things. Maybe people have seen some of my comments there, but you know, I'd like to see Fred moved for some opportunities out there. I saw that report about Gary Trent Jr. Maybe opting out of the player option, trying to
He would
find.
definitely opt out.
Um,
Yes.
so I know some of us were looking forward maybe to starting the tank, and myself included. I don't know, about a week and a half ago or so, I
Hmm.
was starting to say there was going to be a long losing streak, and there was a few folks that were laughing about it. But I thought that with the dysfunction that was happening on
Yep.
a worsening level, that I thought that they were heading in that direction. I just had that feeling. But I must admit, there was a few games there, and this game here, where
Hmm.
they started to, do a bit more ball movement. So, but this is where I wanted to take things with everybody in the context of money now. So we're seeing the performance, the talent of players like Pascal. We know
Hmm.
what the problems that maybe Fred VanVleet's having,
Hmm.
Gary Trent Jr.
Right.
Um, and like I said, we know that there's some money coming up here. So, in the context of money, what I want from yourself and the others on the chat is to determine what money you would pay. What's the value you think some of these guys should be getting? What should Pascal be getting moving forward? Um, what should Fred, if the management's not going to move off him, what is the fair value to pay Fred? What's the fair value to offer Gary Trent Jr.? He's looking for more than 20 mil. I heard in those reports, he's looking for a big payout, and the executives that were meeting up, I guess in Vegas or whatever, there was the talk that they're thinking that if he puts himself on the market, he probably will get offers in the 20 plus mil range. So, with some of these key players, in the
Uh-huh.
context of the money coming up, what's the value? What would you pay him, Robert? And I'd love to hear what other people would pay him.
Sure. Okay. I mean, I didn't necessarily want to dig into this topic this quickly, but sure. I mean, we
I
can
mean,
talk about it now.
the reason I'm bringing it up, Robert, is
Hmm.
because with some of them going to maybe be opting out, like Gary Trent Jr., you don't know about Fred. That's going to hit a wall for the trade deadline. So if they're going to opt out and they're going to be expecting money that you're not willing to pay, time is of the essence in some of the situations. Like you got to decide to move on Gary now if you don't want to pay him 25 mil a year. You know what I mean?
Well,
So that's why I asked the question now, because
sure,
I
sure.
believe we are running out of time with some of these guys.
Okay. So, okay, fine. I think I can answer this in parts. Okay. So there are basically six pieces within the next 2.5 years that you need to make very big decisions on. The most immediate of which are Fred and Gary Trent Jr., both of whom have player options that they will almost certainly exercise, both of whom I would say have come close to, or in the case of Fred VanVleet last year, have outperformed their current contract, and one of whom at least has a long-standing relationship with the organization, and he's a really big part. He's the last guy you introduced at the home games, et cetera, et cetera. There's a fan following for that. Unfortunately for the Raptors in this case, um, these guys do have some sort of cachet with your fan base, right? There, there's always a hometown premium in a weird way when it comes to retaining your own guys, right? Now, Nick Nurse has been openly critical of Gary Trent Jr., the whole quote about maybe he doesn't fit us, maybe he does. To not dodge your question, I think Gary Trent Jr. is probably worth anywhere from 18 to 22 million dollars a year. I don't say this based on the current cap figure. I say this based on a future cap figure that will be considerably higher. And as that cap starts to go closer to 160, 170, you'll start to see 20 be the new 15. Or, sorry, 15 be the new 20. Wait, am I saying that correctly? I think you know what I mean. So
Yeah,
basically,
I
like
understand. There's going to be that inflation. Yeah.
that inflation is going to happen over the next 3 years for sure. I think that's already in the deck. And so as that happens, and as more of those TV deal contracts come in, I think every single player has the carrot dangling in front of their head. To the specific point of Fred VanVleet, again, organization, loyalty, existing relationships within the fan base, like how much this fan base has at times rooted for this guy. There has to be, you would ideally say there should be a hometown discount, but we know that with the tax situation in Canada, that's not going to happen. Never happened with Kyle Lowry. We were paying him $30 million, even though I think the next competing offer for Kyle was probably almost always $5 million less. So if you factor in, like, if he has the same sort of market as Kyle did around 33, then you could expect to pay Fred VanVleet anywhere from 25 to 30. Would I do it? No, I wouldn't. But that's because I'm me. And
Well, that's what I was interested in, though.
Yeah.
You and the other guys on the chat, what are you willing to pay Fred? Do you think Fred would accept it? What are you willing to pay Gary? Will Gary accept it? Will Gary accept the 22? Is that what everybody's willing to pay him as a max? And then even for Pascal, like I said, there's a bit of an X factor with Pascal, whether he makes all NBA again.
Well, if he makes all NBA, he will be eligible for 35% of the cap, which is which is the super max. And do I think that he will be worth it?
Yes.
If you could guarantee me that he would sustain this level of play for the next 5 years, yeah, then he's worth it. Because that contract is not
concerned about his decline though after 30 though.
His decline will be sharp. I'm not guessing. I'm telling you, it's going to be sharp.
So then, factoring that, would you pay him the money?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't at all.
So then what happens though if you can't come to a meeting of the minds in terms of the money with him, then we have to move him too then.
Well, that's why the Raptors are sort of in a I mean, it depends on when they act. I mean, if they let the trade deadline pass and they let this dangle, then Pascal Siakam goes into the next season. And also, I love that we have gone as a fan base worried about whether or not people will come back to suddenly worrying if we are actually even going to bring people back. Look, Pascal Siakam, regardless of whether he falls off a cliff or not at that age, you can't not sign him. You can't let that asset go for nothing. So if you don't trade him, you have to resign him for whatever he wants.
You have one more year with Pascal, right?
You do. You have this year. You have the next year, but you can negotiate that contract as soon as this offseason. I believe there's a deadline somewhere between this offseason and October. There's a deadline where he can opt in for an extension, and that extension can be upwards of 35% of the cap. The only issue is that takes you through the 30s. And I do worry about twitchy athletes. If you look at every single shot that Siakam got today, find me one which was him, like most of them, if not 80% of them, were because he was quicker and faster to his spot than the guy who was guarding him.
The only advantage is he has less wear and tear relative to people who've been playing, 15 years. He's got less wear and tear in his body.
You could certainly say that, absolutely. And I agree with you that there is a point that he could be a very useful, 31, 32, right? But is that a gamble that you're willing to take with a $50 million contract? I don't think so. But me personally, I wouldn't. Look, I'm seeing what the Bulls are going through with Zach LaVine. I'm seeing what the Wizards are going through with Bradley Beal. At their apex, these guys were not that much. They weren't that far removed from Siakam. I would argue Siakam's a little bit better at his peak right now than most of those guys. But there was a time when we were talking about Bradley Beal as a top 15 player. Absolutely, it was about 3 years ago, and this is where we're at now. There are a lot of guys like this, and I'm telling you that paying non-super duper stars like Luka, Jokic, like those guys, paying those guys 35% of the cap, you better have like incredible contracts around them to offset how much that costs. Or you better be a team that's willing to go really deep into luxury tax. And MLSC has shown a willingness, if they have a contender, to go deep into luxury tax. And look, if Siakam is a really good top 20-ish player, at age 32, 33, and Barnes and Anunoby, these guys ascend Precious, if these guys grow the way you want to, add in 2-3 more draft picks that you hit on, I think the Raptors always have this competitive advantage that there's always cheap talent on the team. There's always cheap talent. Look at how much OG Anunoby provided you on his rookie scale contract. Look at how much Pascal Siakam provided you on his rookie scale
OG,
contract.
I would open up the bank for OG as far as like.
Well, that's another player that you're going to have to re-sign, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, if the market for
I got
him,
1 more year for him, right?
if the market for him currently is 3 first-round picks, then I can tell you that there's some team out there comfortable paying him at least $30 million easily. So you start tacking it together. 30 million for Gary, or 25 million for Gary, 30 million for Fred, 35 million for OG, 50 million for Siakam, 38 to 40 for Scotty when he gets off his rookie deal, and you are immediately into the luxury tax of those guys. So to me, Gary's the odd man out. I don't necessarily think he should be. I think Fred, should probably be the odd man out because of the age thing. But pardon?
I think both of them, Fred and Gary.
If I had to choose one, I would probably choose the younger asset that has a very elite skill set, which is shot creation. 23 is a really strange age to give up on somebody, especially someone who has drastically outperformed expectations so far in his career. I don't expect Gary Trent to just become a worse player over the next 5 years. The guy cares entirely too much.
I wasn't thinking that at all. But like I said, the numbers being thrown around, that's why, hence, really, that kind of fueled.
But I don't think the guy's a great defender. I don't think he's a good passer. There's a lot to not like about Gary Trent Jr.'s game. And if you want to find, if you probably Google Gary Trent Jr. critic, you're going to find me in the dictionary right next to it. But I will tell you that what he does is a very elite and rare skill set. Like his ability to get off his shots pretty much over anybody. That's a very rare skill set. And we're seeing it with the Utah Jazz, that having 2 or 3 guys who have that ability, especially if he can come off the bench. I mean, I don't know if he sees himself long-term coming off the bench, but anyway, Marco, I hope this answered your question. I will get into the roster stuff later. I promise.
I'm walking away with it thinking that if you're thinking 22, if quietly Gary's willing to accept 22, that's not tampering for them to talk now quietly behind the scenes, eh?
Sure.
In terms of things, I mean, they could come to a meeting of the minds now. Gary, you're going to do 22. If you're willing to do 22, he's willing to do 22. Then, like you said, what your next step is, that you'll sign him for that 22 kind of deal for what, 4 years, I think.
I mean, this is a person who soured on his role in Portland, right?
Okay.
He's spoken very critically about that period of his life, how he wasn't getting the ball enough. And the guys who were getting the ball ahead of him were CJ McCollum and Dame Lillard. So if the guy wasn't happy being third option behind CJ McCollum and Dame Lillard, I don't think he's probably thrilled being fifth option now behind OG, Scotty. There's too much ahead of him right now.
I understand.
I would not be surprised if there's already been a conversation between his agency Clutch and the Raptors saying, like, look, it's been a nice run, but we've had enough. We're not, I don't think, if you're a coach, if you're Nick Nurse and you're abreast, because they have conversations every day with Masai and Bobby, I don't think you come out in the media and say, well, if he's willing to do this, he fits us, maybe he doesn't fit us. I don't think you make that type of, that's bold. You reserve that for like your end of bench guys and rookies if you're that ballsy. You don't say that about a guy that you're hoping to negotiate a contract with.
No. Everything I'm talking about would be stuff that's quietly said behind the scenes, just to see where everybody's mind's at.
Yeah. Okay, Marco. Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. You take care. Eh?
Cheers, man. Okay, next up we got Blackhawk 2K. Blackhawk, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Excellent. I'm good too. I'm good. The mic's working. As far as the game is concerned, great that we ended the streak. First of all, let's give credit where credit is due. It doesn't matter how we do it, as long as we get it done. We got it. We can worry about the next one. On as far as that is concerned, Pascal, amazing endurance. I think that's something that we don't really acknowledge, how good his endurance is. Not only during the game, you were talking a little bit about his injuries, but let's look back at the fact that when he had his groin injury, the first one, it took him about like 6 to 8 games before he could even get productive again.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm looking at it, like, he wasn't scoring real well when he came back from the first injury. When he came back from this second injury, he was actually scoring, and it was his defense that he had to get better on when he came back this second time from the groin injury. So to me, there is a change in Pascal because he didn't have to struggle on both aspects of the game. He's like firing out of the banks, you know. So I admire that, the fact that he is growing. The problem is he's got a lot of areas to grow in to get to that top 5. He never, you know, because I know he wants to be a top 5, but
I don't see it. It's not.
It's not so much as whether we see it or not. It's what will he have to do to get there, and there's a lot of things he'll have to plug to get there. Because like a night like tonight, and a night like the last game, to be top 5, you have to be consistent in hitting those high marks. He's been consistent in being in the low 20s. Average wise, but he has to understand that if I want to come out and make a claim of I want to be top 5, I better be able to hit 28 to 32 every night, get it that high in order to compete with the other guys. Then
I don't think you have a roster that's suited for him to play that way. You just don't, right? Like if you had 4 shooters around him, those lanes are always going to be open. But right now, most teams are guarding him. Like they're starting out one-on-one, guarding him.
Right.
And if he gets it cooking, they're throwing a second defender. And usually that second defender is coming off of him, off of the worst shooter on the floor. And if you're the Raptors, there's always a worst shooter on the floor, whether it's Scotty Barnes, whether it's a very, very struggling Fred VanVleet, whether it's Thad, whether it's Koloko, whether it's whoever, right? So until you get Precious back and he's shooting well, if he can reclaim that 39%, I don't think it's a coincidence last year that the Raptors went on a streak and started winning a lot when Precious Achiuwa started shooting better. He's a really important part of what this team can do defensively and offensively. But I don't think this team is built for that. Now, if you want to build that team for that because you weren't expecting this type of pop from Siakam, you're like, oh shit, maybe this is someone we need to support. Well, then I think you need to probably part with some assets to give him that type of support. Probably
better
a center who can shoot. Right? Like Miles Turner or someone like that. You need to go after a guy like that because if you are going to make this season a Pascal Siakam soft MVP, campaign, right? Like pretty much what you're saying, 28 to 32, if we're in the playoffs, I would say he's a top 7, top 8 MVP candidate, right? Like probably. So if you're going to make it that and you don't want to lose a lot of games, you're going to have to put incredible shooters around him. Probably going to have to stagger his minutes when he's playing with a center plus Barnes because that's just not helping anybody. And the weird thing is, like, if he can get his 3-point shooting going, it helps teams so much because now he's providing spacing for others, whereas usually he's not. He's usually like demanding the ball in the post and he's kind of clogging the paint. So it's like he goes, everyone else sinks, or everyone else goes and he sinks. It can't work at the same time. So it's like that's because the roster doesn't make sense to me. That's why.
Yeah, and so I agree with you because I think the last time we spoke, I did say to you like we need better from the role players, or we need better role players in there. So I can't disagree on that point there because obviously, even if you look at this game, take the top 4 scores out of the game, and you don't have any good scoring tonight at all. Right.
Who were your top 4? That was Siakam, Fred, OG, and who? Malachi?
Yeah. That's it. Basically,
my theory is if those 4 guys don't play, what are you suggesting that the Raptors score like 12 points the whole game? No, obviously not. They play
No. But what I'm saying is they're not producing very well. So there has to be a sharper focus on the other guys them to produce more. That just like I said with the bench, they need to, like the last time we spoke, I was happy that the bench, at least, even though we lost, the bench had done more. Tonight they didn't do more. However, what I would give the team is they at least maintained better defense or consistent defense in comparison to the last game. If they can at least build upon keeping their defense to this level and higher, going forward, that'll give us a chance every night. It doesn't guarantee us to win, but at least keep us in the game and give us a chance to win the game. From that point.
I mean, at some point though, this team is going to have to address its half court offense. Like it has
Right.
to happen, right?
Right.
You can roll out a top 5 defense, which the Raptors are not, by the way.
Right.
You can roll out a top 5 defense. You can play like a top 5 defense, but at some point, you're going to come across another top 15 defense that has a top 15 offense. And if you are the top 5 defense with a bottom 2 offense, you're going to lose almost every time, right? So it's just like tonight you're facing a team that, frankly, you know, is kind of middle of the pack on everything, right? In my opinion, they don't have like a defined identity. There's no like superstar on the other end who can just take over. And you had the best player on the court tonight. That was the case going into this game. That's the case leaving this game. There should be no debate whether Pascal Siakam is a better player than Julius Randle. He definitely is, right? But you know, one thing I will say is what the Knicks did tonight was more sustainable than what the Raptors did tonight. They moved the ball around. Yeah, some things didn't go their way. Some calls didn't go their way. Some shots didn't fall. Some shots went incredibly well, like quickly, just going on nuts. But I'm always looking at the system, not the result. Tonight, it doesn't matter to me that Siakam scored 52. It's great that he scored 52 for him, and it's like a nice thing to put on his career that he joins this very elite group of players that have scored 50 plus at the Garden. But to me, it's how he got his 52 that's important. I thought it was better than how he usually gets his offense. So if he can continue to play this way, then that's incredible. I would like to see this against a team that has someone that can actually match up with him. You know what I mean? Because it's easy to get like to see a single performance like this and be like,
better defenders. If there's better defenders out there,
it's like a better matchup. It's not like the Knicks are a terrible defensive team. It's just they're a team defense that struggles with a particular type of player, and Siakam is that player.
They're kind of like us, except
who's the player that we struggle with? I mean, we struggle with really quick point guards.
Yeah.
Right. Like
when I look at the Knicks, they look like us. Just
they do.
Yeah.
To some extent, right? It's just they're a little bit healthier right now. Right. And they have a little bit more of an identity. And I think they move the ball a little bit better. You know, Randall was willing to move off the ball a little bit, pass it into Hartenstein, get it out to RJ. There's like, it's a little less predictable. With the Raptors, it was just like, okay, it's going to be Siakam. Siakam's going to pass to VanVleet. VanVleet's going to pass back to Siakam. He's going to set a pick. He's going to get off of it, and then he's going to try to score. You know what I mean? He's going to go to the line.
One thing about the Knicks, though, at least they have better centers. Or they have
they definitely do. They have 2 guys who would start for us. They have 2 guys that would start for us immediately. I think they have 3 guys who can start for us. And I'm pretty sure Nerlens Noel is on that team. I'm pretty sure Nerlens Noel will start for us.
So I think Jericho Sims, Hartenstein,
Mitchell Robinson. Yeah.
Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Noel is in Pistons.
Correct.
Right now.
Correct. They traded him. Yeah.
But they still have 3. 3 or 4 or even 4 centers.
I don't know if Jericho Sims would necessarily start for us, but I definitely know Hartenstein and Mitchell would start for us. Like they're a load. So, anyways, man, do you have anything? Do you have any final takes? Final thoughts?
Well, I have OG is still recovering, so even though he's still impactful, he's still recovering. So I don't think we've gotten the full OG effect on yet. I think he needs maybe about 2 more games. And so we got a good production, but I think we'll get a better production out of OG.
I agree.
The next 2 games or so.
Nice.
Nick Nurse needs to run some sets for Scotty just to get him going. I think that's what the challenge is that if you don't have to plan, if you don't have to run sets for Pascal because he can get it on his own, then shift the focus to who you do want to get more, like shift it to OG, shift it to Scotty to say, produce more. Here are the sets we're going to run to get you to go more. Right. I think Nick can at least put more focus in that area there. Here's another Here's a comparison. You might say I'm crazy on this one. I think the flow of the game is kind of better with Flynn than Gary Trent Jr. In the sense of,
I agree with
there isn't Gary Trent Jr. kind of has a Chris Boucher effect with get the ball and shoot immediately without surveying the team to say, hey, can I move the ball or something like that.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I will admit is that Gary is still better if I need to go and get a bucket. I would prefer Gary in the sense of, okay, let's go get a bucket over Flynn. But I think Flynn at least keeps the flow of the game with the team where it doesn't feel like, oh, as soon as Flynn gets get the ball, he's going to chuck it.
He's not selfish. He's assertive. He's one of the few guys on this team who has the perfect balance of when to go and when to pass. He's like really smart, and it really shows that he's been really well coached. Anyway, Blackhawk 2K, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on as always.
All right.
Cheers, man.
Thanks.
Peace. Thank you for your insights. And next up, we've got Daryl from Taiwan. Hey, Daryl. How are you doing?
Hey,
Thanks
Rob,
for waiting.
Rob. No worries. Yeah, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm good.
Good.
How was the game for you?
Game was well, yeah, it was good. I mean, the outcome was good. Yeah, I've been listening. A lot of the things that you're saying and some of the other callers are saying, of course, I agree with. First off, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, because I'm not going to be able to call in for the next few weeks. I'm actually headed back to Canada for the holidays.
Oh,
so
we have internet over here. Since you left Canada, we've developed internet.
I don't know, man. 17 years ago when I left, it was pretty spotty, but no, I know. But I'll be dealing with madness of children and family and that kind of thing. So you know how it is. Yeah. But so yeah. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. A couple of points that some of the callers have brought up. Something you said, that if Pascal played like this, and you could guarantee he would play like this game for the next 5 years, you would give him the super
not this
max.
game specifically. I mean this season specifically.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Right. But I mean, I would take it even further. This game, yeah, obviously, I would say if he could play not 50 points, but if he could play like this game
on lower volume shots,
lower volume shots, lower usage, lower minutes, like whatever. If he just played like this, even 20 games a year, like I would put him up. I would put him up there. Like if you look around the league at other stars and superstars. Mm-hmm. They have off games too, like we think of them as these incredible players that are always consistent, and they're not. So it's, if they put together 20 excellent games in a year, like that's enough to sort of put them into a kind of a level all of their own. And I would say that consistency is his thing, obviously. And if he can play like this, then I don't have a big problem with a more heliocentric offense around him. But let's look at why he played so well this game. What was it about this game, and why do you and I both really liked his game? Why? Well, it's because he was hitting his shots. He was taking good shots. I mean, for him, he was taking shots that he was comfortable with, and they were going in. What if they weren't? What if he was missing half of his free throws? What if he was missing bunnies at the rim? And what if he was clanking all of his threes, and like he has done in the past?
I've already told you I don't really care too much if shots go in or not. Like I care about where you get your shots from, in what context, and how it impacts the other guys. I don't care about wins and losses. Had the Raptors lost tonight? Look, in all honesty, 52 points on 68% shooting is about. I think I'm comfortable saying that's the greatest single game performance in Raptor history. When you tack on one turnover, just for context, 9 rebounds and 7 assists, 52 points in a win at the Garden on the road.
At the Garden.
I mean, it is definitely the greatest single game performance in Raptor history, non-playoffs. I mean, obviously when we go playoffs, we're talking Vince, maybe Kawhi, Philadelphia game winner. But regular season, nothing touches this. Not DeMar's 50-piece, not Terrence. I think Terrence Ross hit 51 at one point. There was a huge Daniel Marshall 3-point barrage. There was a huge single-game performance from Vince. There's 54 from Fred. Nothing touches this.
Magic,
nothing touches this. I mean, it not only – and look at all the contextual elements to this. You also have a team that's at home. You also have a team that's riding an 8-game win streak. For you to come out and put 52 points on the road against a team on an 8-game win streak, my gosh, You know what I mean? Like that's
Against a Tibbs
incredible.
team too. Against a Tibbs team.
And against a team that has a coach that, you know, traditionally in the past has been very, very good at stopping you. So yeah, like that's, I mean, it's I mean, if he's found something, if this is just, you know, him kind of regaining his form after the groin thing, right?
Yeah.
If this, because I always say that off-season work, it doesn't always show right away, right? And everyone was talking all off-season how he put in this incredible work and he was going to take a jump. And he said he was going to take a jump, and Nick Nurse said he was going to take a jump. Well, a lot of us, myself especially, believed that we saw that jump early in the season, right? Like I thought that was the jump, but what if that wasn't the jump? What if a lot of the stuff that he actually implemented, all of the counters, all of the, you know, the improved handle, all that stuff is actually showing up now? Because over the last 2 games, he's like the top scorer in the NBA. Like that's a crazy reality to even ponder. Now, again, I would like to see it go up against like a better defense. Like not even a better defense, just a team with a defender who is actually matched up to try to stop them, because I just think that I always project forward and I look at the teams ahead of us, and I look at teams like with a lot of length and long defenders, switchable defenders like Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, you know, ahead of us. There's Giannis. There's like every single team ahead of us has someone who I think does a phenomenal job stopping him. And I would just like to see him perform against those specific teams, because those are the ones that I'm really worried about.
Well, I was thinking about that already. The next game against Cleveland is going to be a huge test to see whether or not this is the next
Cleveland
game.
just beat Milwaukee. They
I know.
were blowing them out of the water.
So
yes,
I think that's going to be the litmus test right there, is how he responds against that. So I think, like you said, what if he's found something? What if he is entering superstar, sort of getting close to that stratosphere? Do you think it's possible?
It's possible.
Because one thing that you said a couple of games ago is that superstars separate themselves by literally creating separation, right?
He created a lot of separation tonight.
He did, and the way that he does it is a little bit different than a guy like Jason Tatum creating separation, or Kyrie Irving. He creates his separation, like you said, with quickness and with extension. He extends his body just so far past the other player that they just can't possibly get to it. Now, the flip side of that then is that it's a very, very low energy efficient way of creating separation. So he's expending so much physical, strenuous energy to get it. It's unlike a guy like Tatum, who will just kind of like, I don't even know how he does it. Watching him, he's a magician, but like it seems so effortless. But with Pascal, it seems like he's doing double the effort to get the same result. So like you said, he's gonna decline sharply in his early 30s when he loses that quickness, when he's not going to be able to beat guys and extend that few extra inches past them. Like it's going to be a cliff. But I think for now, for the next couple of years, the next year or two, I don't know, man. Maybe he's up there in that stratosphere. Yeah. Maybe he's getting there.
I mean, look, I wouldn't jump like yet. I think like you can trust like 7-year sample size and see some tough playoff stuff. I will tell you, Kawhi and Paul George. Okay, so let's just go through the schedule while we still have people before people check out before midnight. Okay.
Yeah.
So New York done at Cleveland, Los Angeles Clippers, Memphis, Phoenix.
I know.
Indiana, Milwaukee, a rematch with New York at home, Portland, Charlotte, Atlanta, at New York again, so a reemergence in the Garden, go on the road against Milwaukee, on the road against Minnesota, then Boston, New York again. So New York is this half of the season's Brooklyn, basically. At Sacramento, at Golden State, at Portland, at Phoenix, at Utah, at Houston, at Memphis, San Antonio. And then we have an NBA trade deadline. So that's the next 25 games or 24 games now. And I can tell you that at least 14 of those teams have a very good matchup for Siakam. So I will bring out a scorecard personally, and I'm just going to, for my own evaluation, because I'm open to being wrong. Look, guys, I'm not shying away from it. I made a very long rant, like 45 minutes, telling you that you cannot run your offense through Siakam and expect to be successful. And even though he's going to get his numbers, I don't think you're going to win. Well, to be honest, if I'm going to gloat when I'm right, I'm going to own it when on a night where I'm wrong. And, you know, I mentioned it before. I hate front runners. I absolutely, I hate them. Like, I can't stand front runners. There's like, I think like I hate, there's like 10 things I hate and like 8 of them are front runners. I can't stand this mentality of acting so different when you're up and when you're down. Like, own it. Like, whatever, you know, tonight I look like a moron. Right? Like, I do. Like, it's very hard to say with a straight face, like, oh, he can't be a superstar. I would like to see it against a larger sample size. Obviously, the last 2 games have been very impressive, and I'm not going to take that away. I'm not going to like hold on to something and be like, oh, I'm not seeing it. I'm not. Of course, I'm seeing it. That's incredible, and it's not just that the shots are going in. They're different shots. You know, they're not like the shots that he was missing. The shots he was missing, if you look at the low light films, they're so contested. His shot form is being altered. Tonight it was like spin, around, burst, quick, separation. There's like a foot between his hand and the defender's hand. So to me, it's like a completely different game with him, right? So like, yeah, no, Jay Ships, I know I'm not a moron. I'm saying I sound like a moron because if today, because this is the thing. There are people that literally jump ship every game. They're like, Fred VanVleet sucks. Should we keep him? No, he sucks. No, he definitely sucks. No, we should keep him. And pretty much their entire opinion is based on whether or not he scored over 15 points. Like, it's so silly. You guys, if you flip like that, you just sound insane. Like, if someone has like, look, if you're a critic of Scotty Barnes because he never takes threes, like if that's your criticism, right? Or he can't get over screens, that's your criticism. Well, on the game where he does what you say he doesn't do well, then that's a day where you can be like, hey, maybe I was wrong about this for one day. You know, I think that's fair. But don't like base it on like whether shots go in or not. You know, I have been critical of his shot diet. I've been critical of the offense around him. And to be honest, like I was on my soapbox about this like 3 months ago. So I didn't jump ship. But what I am saying is that you still have one of the worst half-court offenses in the league, if not the worst half-court offense, and you're still underperforming expectations hugely. You're still under 500 with Pascal Siakam in the lineup. So it hasn't worked as well as it, in theory, should. With his dominant stats, like if I told you going into the season that he would put up these numbers, and he would play this many games, and OG would put up these numbers and be a DPOY candidate, I think just those 2 variables alone, you'd be like, this would be a team sitting comfortably above 500 if those 2 guys are popping that much. So the fact that they are 4 games under 500 to me says either everyone else sucks, like every single other person fell off a cliff, and that might be the claim for some people, like for the media, and for a lot of people out there, that is the claim, that, you know, everyone else just sucks. Everyone else is underperforming. Scotty's underperforming. Otto's injured. Precious hasn't played well, and he's slumping, and Fred's slumping, and Gary's, you know, inconsistent. They can say all of that, right? Or you could ask the question that when one guy dominates the ball so much, how difficult is it for other guys to get the rhythm? And if the guys that you have around him can't go with him, then is he worth changing the pieces you have around him? Because if you really do have a top 10 player, those guys don't grow on trees, right? If he's legitimately that level of player, then we need to stop thinking about, you know, oh, what's good for Scotty's development, what's good for OG's development. It doesn't matter. You have a top 10 player, you go for it. I think. I really do. I think if you have a top 10 player, I think you need to aim to contend. But if you don't have that guy, then you need to like reconsider what the hell you're doing. So I think the next few games will be telling. I think the next 2 games specifically will be very telling. If he can do this against Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, and then follow that up by doing this against Kawhi and Paul George, although they have taken a bit of a step back defensively, I think they can still lock down, and I think they're the type of defenders that give him a lot of trouble. If he can do it against those guys, I will absolutely have to reconsider everything I've been saying about him, and I just maybe think that maybe there's some sort of step that he's taken in the offseason that I haven't properly calculated for. Yeah. Anyways, Daryl, thank you so much. Enjoy your trip to Canada, and you know, feel free to message me. Let me know when you're around.
Yep.
Cheers, man.
Absolutely. Talk
Peace.
to you again.
Have a good one. Next up we have Samuel. Samuel, how's it going?
Hey, great, you?
I'm good.
Yeah,
How you
I
doing?
missed the game, but I for the sake
Oh,
of calling in, I watched some of the highlights,
okay.
and I think you try to talk to these guys, some of the guys that call in. This is what I'm afraid of. Like he has one of these games, and everybody's gonna say like he's great. I looked at the highlights, even the highlight package that intends to make you look good. These are tough shots. I'm sorry, him trying the Euro step, I haven't seen him drive by anybody other than a center, right? And you think he's fast, but he's not quite there. So how is this, like, in your opinion, how is this going to translate into the playoffs? So let's
Look,
just say he
here's the
destroys
thing.
Kawhi and all these guys, right?
Yeah. Look, here's the thing. What I'll say is the Knicks, like you can't, like I can't judge somebody for doing something that,
Yeah,
like for going up against a defender that wasn't there, and I can't
exactly.
judge somebody for not going up against a defender that never guarded him. So I can't judge him for how he performed against guards and wings because that's not who the Knicks chose to play him. I
Yeah,
think it's pretty telling. Look, to be honest, like look, the game that Kobe scored 82,
yep.
right? What was the game plan for Sam Mitchell?
I can't remember what.
Let Kobe get his. We'll
Yeah,
stop everybody else,
that's
right?
right.
That this is a common
Yeah, yeah,
game
yeah.
plan for a lot of teams. Okay, so if they decide to guard Pascal Siakam, one of the quickest, twitchiest, gifted scorers in the NBA, who's 6'10", who teams regularly shade with a soft double pretty early, who teams usually go out with a wing defender, not a big, not a center. When's the last time you saw a center guarding Pascal Siakam? It's absolutely insane. Jericho Sims? Are you kidding me? So if you're going to guard him like that, he has to kill that matchup in
Correct.
order for them to stop doing it. Because if they're guarding him that way, that's disrespectful. It's the same way if if the Knicks had decided to guard Scotty Barnes in the post with Jalen Brunson.
Well,
And if Scotty Barnes doesn't go at him, then that's just stupid. Like
my
you
my
have to go at it.
my point's kind of like what you alluded to in the past. All these videos. Right? Is this fool's goal? Is what I'm trying to say. Like, what I'm concerned is he does that for the next 5 games, and everybody's gonna hail him as the best, player in Raptors history, like most of the media here is gonna do.
Okay.
And then I hope, and I don't think Masai is gonna make that decision based on this fan base, but I don't think I don't want to give people false. So I can't see this guy as the guy who takes us to the next level. I just can't see it based on the way he plays. Like they're playing him for the drive is so obvious. Like you don't have to be a coach. They're always going to play him for the drive. And like you said earlier, they're not circling him with enough shooters. So what's the point here?
Look, here's the thing. If like again, do I think that Pascal Siakam has entered Jason Tatum territory?
No.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
you don't.
stupid.
Yeah.
I understand how Jason Tatum would guard would attack this similar matchup. Like if you guard, like let's be real, if you guard Jason Tatum with Jericho Sims or Mitchell Robinson, you're going to be in for a really long night because
Yep.
he's going to kill you, right? So in this case, I wonder what the game plan was because Tom Thibodeau is usually a pretty good coach, right?
Is he overrated, do you think? Tibbs. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking out loud. Because I've heard both. I heard, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I think he rides his guy, and I think that's why that's the reason Derrick Rose breaks. I don't know if that's true, but I'm not sure. Is he?
Yeah,
Is
like I
he?
mean,
Yeah.
like it's just like if like what's the point here? Like if you want this guy to be traded, then 52 points helps. If you
Yeah.
don't want him to be traded and you're thinking about maxing him out to a super max, then 52 points also helps because
I
either
think
way he's getting a super max.
I think we're all, at least you and I, kind of, and a couple guys are on the same page. I that's the question: is do you see this as more like, hey, we got this product here, do you want it? And this could be a fire sale, like, or you think like we're
Here's the
going to
thing.
continue monitoring this, and we're kind of dangling this middle ground, and we're looking at to see if we could get some. What I said to you on my message, like, are we trying? Are they trying to? Here, make 2 rounds of playoff ticket sales or 1 round, and this is a great season for us business wise, and we won't care. Or you see it really, we're still going for the long term plan. Like what how do you see this if you were in their shoes? And obviously we're not. I'm just wondering.
If I were in their shoes,
Yeah, if you were.
I would pick a road,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of that road would have a lot to do with who I think Scotty Barnes is and who I think Pascal Siakam is. Now, and again, the Raptors have a lot of intel on these guys. They've been around them. They see them in practice. They work with them. They know them better than I do. So if you know that Siakam, and I mean, one of the things that I really trust about Masai and Bobby is they're not knee-jerk reactionary type of guys, right? They have a long-term vision. They're very principled in that approach. They're highly analytical. And so, look, they're not blind and oblivious to the fact that one game does not a season make, good or bad. One hot streak and one cold streak. It's not. They're not. They're not those types of people. And I say this from as a person who comes from a very similar mindset in my own life, like just coming from a hedge fund trading background. Like, sometimes when you work with hedge funds and you work at a trading desk, you start to feel invincible, and you learn very quickly how sobering that feeling can be when you sustain a huge loss because you just think that you don't need to put a stop loss or some stupid thing like that. So what I'm saying is these guys are extremely analytical and they understand who these players are. And I think that it would be fair to look at a larger body of work and not just hone in on one game like fans do. Fans are going to be like, Siakam's great, Siakam sucks. Siakam's great, VanVleet's great because he scored 39 and 39. There were people who were calling for this guy to get traded. And then he puts up I don't know what he put up against the Lakers, but it was more than he usually puts up. It was 30 points, 29 points, something like that. And suddenly everyone's like, oh my God, Freddie's back, and then he sinks the next game and you're like, oh shit, maybe Freddie's not back. And it's just my God, man, like this is so stupid. Stop reacting game after game. Stop changing your tune. To me, it's I don't see how an offense, I don't see how these players fit around a Siakam playing this way. So my point is, you choose. Yeah. You have to choose. Because this roster doesn't make sense around him. Starting Christian Koloko or Juancho or whoever, Cam at center, it doesn't make sense. You don't have a center on this team that can actually play with this guy. And if you put a center in like Christian Koloko, he's just in his way. If you put Scotty Barnes and Christian Koloko at the same time, which is the starting lineup you've been going with, in every single game, we wonder, why did the Raptors get off to such slow starts? Why are the Raptors so bad in the third quarter? Because you keep playing two non-shooters with a guy who needs open driving lanes. So at the end of the day, are you prioritizing the development of Scotty Barnes and Christian Koloko because you value them as long-term pieces and some other offense that you have, fashioned in your mind as some future version of this team that you really want to develop? Or do you actually have a guy in Siakam who is actually rare and, a 28-year-old who is ascending into top 15 territory is not something that most teams would just move off of, right?
I mean, are you seeing this? Because I know you mentioned your background. You played a little bit of organized ball, and I didn't. I'm more of a rec ball, but I've watched basketball for a long time. All I see is I think you did one with your partner Leo there. I remember seeing that video. It's always Siakam close to the logo, and he's clapping his hand. And I think you guys mentioned, and I'm same thing. Why is this guy looking for the ball that far? And
doesn't do a lot
in
for
your
his
opinion, looking
teammates,
at
right?
it. No, is he opening the two corners threes as well? Do you see that or you don't? Even in this game, I don't see he's opening the corner three. Then he hits these tough floaters and he doesn't get all the way to the rim. I saw maybe one or two times in this 52 point. He gets cleanly to the rim and he flips up a shot. Whereas if remember the championship year, I know Kawhi's not a different level player. He goes and go for the hard dunk, not just to draw the foul, and it's more solid. Whereas this guy, if you don't go in and open up the corner three and kick it out all for 10 seconds, and you're not Luka, because Luka can play with the ball, and then you actually it's actually a three, and whereas this guy, you play with the ball 10 seconds and you're shooting a tough two. I have a problem with that. I'm not sure if you're seeing the same thing.
I see it, and here's the thing that I would say is that people often glorify Kawhi as this very perfect player that the Raptors had, and I don't think anyone has ever at the time dug into his flaws as an offensive player, but he had plenty. Namely, he routinely missed very obvious passes. He would often pass to players' ankles or knees. Siakam, to his credit, while he did not start out this way, has ascended to becoming a better passer than Pascal Siakam, which is very impressive. Than Kawhi, which is very impressive. I would also say that by the time he got here, he kind of had a difficulty dialing in with his knee. And so the defense was also a bit overrated. Yeah, he could turn it up for like 3-4 possessions, but I think like the defense is somewhat comparable. I realize that might be insane. So really the gap between Siakam and Kawhi right now is in isolation scoring and the cleanness with which they get their shots off, as you say, like the methodical way that Kawhi can just put up like 30, 40 whenever he wants. And I think Siakam can be schemed around. But passing is important for a first option. So having a first option who maybe doesn't need to dominate possessions as an ISO scorer as much as Kawhi did, I think it's not like the worst first option to have. I think the last 2 games have given me a reason to just, stop going aggressively in one direction, take a moment and just think about this. And this is what I've accused the other side in this argument of not doing, which is take a moment and think, right? And I think it's fair for everybody who thinks that Pascal Siakam isn't, a playoff, contending level first option,
Sure.
to maybe hone in on the next 2 games and give it a chance. Let's see what happens. I'm not saying judge the whole season based on the next 2 games or judge the whole season based on tonight. I am, however, saying that as we go through this season, we are gathering more and more data, and so are the Raptors, and so is the front office. And, had the Raptors lost tonight, I feel like, if they're looking at the same math that I'm looking at, this season was in the toilet. Because once you fall to 13 and 19, the math is staggeringly impossible, almost impossible to get to 50 wins. And right now, the Brooklyn Nets, 4th place, are on pace for 51 wins. So you're facing either Brooklyn, Cleveland. So I would like to see him perform against teams that have the advantage that those teams have to see if, because the Raptors have already said, first round is no longer acceptable. We need second round.
Right.
And in order to get to the second round, you need to beat somebody in the first round. And so my question is, can we beat one of those 4 teams in a 7-game series? Are you willing to gamble a season on that? Or are you willing to abort this season? Sorry to use that word if that's triggering for some people, but are you willing to abandon this season and then just, call it a day and build around younger players, trade away assets, whatever?
So the question is, and you, because you do a lot of research, is this a top, is this a 10-player draft that's upcoming? Because if it is,
no,
wouldn't it make sense to you may 3 players maybe?
5 to 6.
This upcoming
there's
draft,
5 to 6
5 to
really
6.
good ones. Yeah. And 2 really good ones.
Would it be more beneficial? Because even if Pascal maybe gets you to the second round, maybe squeak by, if we are championship or bust at some point, and this guy's 28 years old, I'm just wondering if this is one of more deeper draft, at least for 5 players wise. Would it make sense to, like you said earlier, would it, maybe, hey, this is the time to kind of, thank you for your service and start parting ways with this core and get us some assets back, because I don't know, I don't see a value of us winning the next 3-4 games, and this guy's not going to bring us all the way to the top, is what
I got to be honest. If you manage to win the next 3-4 games, given the difficulty of the next 3-4 games, I think you need to adjust. I think you need to look at that. It has to be part of the sample. You can't be blind to the part of the sample because you've already made up your mind after a certain number of games. A lot of teams have difficulty gelling early on, and because we have a hypothesis that the Raptors should not be one of those teams because they're bringing back so many players and there's so much continuity. Well, there might be internal rifts. There may also be some, health issues. There's also the escalating, almost like compounding effect of not having shooters in an offense where your number 2 and number 1 guy need lanes to drive to the basket because they're straight line drivers like Siakam and Scotty. And it means Scotty is having the season from hell so far. And frankly, so is Fred. And frankly, OG and Anunoby is shooting terribly. So it's like there's a lot of guys sinking around. So, it's like, here's the thing. If we had lost tonight, the headline tomorrow would read what? Teammates don't help Siakam, right? The teammates don't help Siakam. But the headline could also read that maybe, we need to get more people going and there's a reason that's not happening. So you can interpret it either way. And, here's the thing. Yes, I have been often very critical of Fred and Pascal for kind of playing this 2-man thing where they only trust each other and certain other guys get frozen out of the offense. But, it was much easier to hold that position and much easier to beat the drum of that position when those other guys are really, really getting it going with their limited touches. Like if Scotty Barnes, instead of 1 for 10 tonight, was like going straight to the basket and dunking everything and they just ignored him, like, yeah, I might have some things to say about it, but you know, if he's just going to not, he's not going to like bring that energy. I don't think he's talented enough offensively to play with the level of energy he did tonight. So it's hard to defend that, and it's hard to advocate for more touches for guys who are doing less with the touches, right? Because often, like, I would be critical of Pascal or Fred because they would dominate the ball to the point where their teammates would fall out of rhythm. But tonight, they tried to go to those guys early. Scotty got 4 attempts very early, right? And they tried to move the ball to him, and he was just passing it off. And it's the same thing happened last game. Like, they gave him an open 3, and he passed it up. So at that point, they can't make threes for him. So I have to be fair.
That's
I have to be fair across the board and say, hey, if he's not going to take those shots, then why the hell are they passing to him? It's like the whole season we're asking them to pass you the ball, and if they're finally going to pass you the ball, then you have to make the most of your opportunities. You're 21 years old. You know, yes, you were the 4th overall pick, but you're not Kobe Bryant. You know, like, you can't just So I think, look, at the end of the day, Morgan, we're gonna get to you. 1 second.
Okay, my fear is let's just. Sorry, I'm going quickly. So, if you hit it right on the nail, if you're going to choose the road that you think, let's say he performs well in the 5 games, and I think you were talking about it, like maybe you got to surround him with shooters, right? If he's that James Harden, Luka type, then maybe you gotta line up shooters around him. And if that experiment fails, that means the next 3 years it's gone. So you need to, the next 3 years, are you now not wasting Scotty's timeline? There's a conflict of timeline. They got to choose, and this is probably the season they got to choose quickly. You know what I mean? Like, this is where I'm afraid of the fool's goal thing. Yeah.
I don't think you necessarily lose much, because it's not like Scotty's having this great shooting season and he's being benched, not being given opportunities. He's being given opportunities. He's either not healthy or not maximizing those opportunities right now. And so I think it's fair to say.
No, I'm talking the next 2-3 years.
Right. And also, like, I think that you have to understand this also from the point of selling it to the fans. Like, if you're going to somehow blow this up and build around Scotty Barnes, well, then Scotty Barnes can't be going 1 for 10, right? Like, you cannot sell a fan base on we're gonna build around someone and he's going 1 for 10 and just being very passive for large stretches of these games. This is the Mecca. This is the Garden. Like, if you want to be great, you got to show up in these games. OG Anunoby pulled a 35 piece last season. I remember that, and it was very impressive. And Siakam, showed up for 52 tonight. Kudos to him. I just, it's like, this is not personal. Like, I think I'm reading the comments, kind of like scrolling down. It's like some people are just like absolutely mental. Like, I don't know what they're going on about. It's like, my God, like, do you think I'm blind to basketball?
Because Rob, no offense to these. No offense to you guys. Like, it's like the media and the organization did a great job on these narratives, and everybody's just reading the narrative. I'm sorry, watch the game. Like, if you watch the game, you would see some of the stuff that you're seeing, and I'm like, guys, you just gotta watch it, because this guy's taking tough shots and is still taking tough shots. So, anyways, I'll let it go. I appreciate your time.
I agree with your general. I agree with your general point. I definitely do. Don't take it that I'm not agreeing with you. That he does take a lot of tough shots, and I would say among all the stars in the league, I think his shot diet is one of the most difficult. However, tonight he made them. Kudos where kudos are due. If he can make them again, trust me, when you put up 52 points, you are now on every single person's radar. When you come into the building, it's like they're guarding you when you get off the bus. So if he can continue to put up against that pressure, then I think you have to reevaluate him. Like, everyone who's been critical of him, myself included, has to look at new facts.
Yeah.
If he can go and do this against Cleveland,
sure.
Well, then I'm pretty sure Cleveland has about the toughest front line in terms of power forward and center you're going to face, other than maybe Boston, right? So, I mean, it's up there. So if you can do it against Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, I think, and you can do it against Kawhi, Ibiza, and Zubats and Paul George. You can do it against teams that actually have the personnel to match up with him, and you don't just revert back to like shooting 8 for 23. Then I think we have something here. And if you can win those games with him playing that way, well, now we really have something here, right? Because like right now, I don't think I would be talking shit if the Raptors had a top 15 offense with him playing this way, and they were 5 games over 500, right? If it's working, why would I be
Then
against it?
wouldn't, yeah, then wouldn't you, going back to the discussion of the 2019 team, right? If they truly believe in him, that means this trading deadline, they're going to get him somebody like a Pau Gasol or equivalent, or whatever this year, somebody
Mhm.
like that to take us to the
Yep.
top. Or they got to trust him because this is
Yeah.
the year, because you got Gary and I think OG.
Mhm.
They got to make a decision. I think we're all on the same. Most of us are on the
Yep.
same page.
Yep.
I'm just kind of frustrated to see the local media and some of the fans act that, oh yeah, he's like the best thing next to LeBron. No, he's not. I'm sorry.
I mean, if anyone's comparing
Anyways,
him to
I'll let-
LeBron,
thank you.
I don't think that's an opinion you need to take very seriously. Okay. All right. Cheers, Samuel. Have a good one. Morgan, how are you?
Hi. Calling back in again. I just not like super long. But I don't know. You guys were sort of touching on this sort of at the end of that discussion. You were talking about how Scotty went like 1 for 10. But I don't know, like earlier in the season we saw like Fred go like 0 for 11 or whatever. And
Mhm.
it was like that disaster day. But I
Yep.
felt like I didn't see Scotty like at all in the second half. And
He
I just
came in for he started the
like
third.
he was in for like a little bit at the beginning of the third, and then
Mhm.
he was like in for
He
like
got
a
a quick
couple
hook.
minutes.
Yep.
Yeah, and then he was like gone. I felt like I didn't see him, and so like maybe I missed something altogether, but like I felt
So
like I just
he started the third. He got a
mhm
pretty quick hook,
mhm
which I think I could argue was probably warranted. And then he came into the game ice cold. He hadn't really touched the floor for about 20, 25 minutes in probably real time. And if you've played sports, that is
yeah
almost impossible to do. Like you can't
right
keep doing this. And Nurse did this in last game too. And I'm not saying this is Nurse's fault or anything, but when you decide to go away from a guy for what felt like about 25
right
minutes of real time, I would have to check it. You can't put them back in the game just to avoid the headlines. You have to just go with it. Because if that is
right
working for you, like, what an awkward situation to put a player in, because now you put him in and he's cold and the sweat has
mhm
dried somewhat and it's really cold in the arena. You could see like from him like kind of like
yeah, they all have the little
shake it
heating
off.
blankets and whatnot.
And
Yeah
yeah, and I mean to put him in that situation, God forbid they had lost, everyone would have pegged it on him. They would have been like, "Oh my
right
God, this guy cost you the game." And it's like, no, you cost yourself the game by putting in a
right
guy who's completely cold. And thankfully they pulled him out again. But it was such a quick hook. I don't think I've ever seen Scotty Barnes come into the game and get pulled out like less than like I
right.
I would be
It was like
very
no
surprised if it was
time was
more than a
passed.
2 minute
Yeah
run.
yeah
Again, if you're going to be on the court, you're going to shoot 1 for 10. You better like be balls out on defense. And he
right
wasn't. He wasn't tonight.
mhm
I think he made some really good passes. I think he really tried to get on the glass. I do think he tried to guard. I'm not accusing
right
him
yeah
of not trying. He was definitely trying. But the level of force that the rest of his team was playing with, um, Fred, again, like with his physical limitations,
mhm
OG just gapping passing lanes and stuff. I think usually you see Scotty like on the upper echelon of on the upper end of hustle plays,
right yeah
deflections. Hasn't been the case so far this year, and to be
mhm
honest, really wasn't the case tonight. So if
mhm
Nick Nurse is looking at it like, hey, if this guy's going offensively and he's kind of average on defense, then we'll roll with it. But if he's shooting 1 for 10 on 1 for 10 on offense, and the defense
mhm
isn't respecting him as a spacer, and he's not making bunnies at the rim, and he's not
mhm
giving it to me crazy on defense, I don't know how he can play a guy and
right
justify it. So, and it's like it's a wake up call to Scotty that he has to play better.
yeah. I mean, the other person that I felt like we didn't see very much today, and I guess the last couple of games, although um, I'm not so sure about the one on Monday, but Boucher, I feel like I haven't seen as much of recently as well.
His
And
shot
so,
selection is completely like it's really questionable, and he
hmm
came into the game and took a 3 within the first possession, which is
yeah,
something, if you really talk to people who play basketball, you almost never
hmm
want to do, especially when you're not a lights out shooter. Excuse me for 1 second. Sorry, 1 second.
oh, for sure. Okay, well, I'll go. Hi. Um, Anyways, I'm
Sorry,
making my
sorry to
partner
put you
an
in that
accent. No,
situation. I still
you're
have
good. You're good.
I still have a bit of a sinus infection, so I had to blow my nose. And
Oh, for sure.
yeah. Anyway, yeah. So any other takeaways other than the Scotty thing tonight? What do you think of Pascal's game?
Oh, I mean, like obviously Pascal had like a great game. I did notice that he and Fred were doing a little bit more of sharing the ball. It seemed like they still did a little bit of like, you're my best friend and I'm gonna pass to you and we're gonna do some fun little things. But like they did seem to be passing a little bit more to the other guys and sort of taking advantage of the other people who were out there. And Pascal was definitely doing some of those things where he would just like go and be like, okay, I'm just gonna muscle through the rest of this and just, hopefully get a foul. As opposed to
Yeah,
passing to some of the people on the outside. I think there was one time, I think it was Wancho who was over on the far side of the screen.
yeah,
And Pascal just went straight up and like muzzled through like 6 guys or something, even though there's only 5. Um, but he just went through all of them instead of passing it out. And I thought that was a little weird, but I guess whatever, like this was like a really good game for him. So he was just feeling it.
yeah.
But
No, I think what I like about him more, and I said this about Fred in the game I believe in the first game that he scored 39. It's not just that the shots are going in; it's just how quickly you're going into them. Like
yes.
what I really resent is dribble, 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 survey,
Hmm.
survey. It really screws up the offense when you hold the ball like that. I also don't like guys like holding the ball, bringing it up, crawling it, especially when we're such a terrible half-court offense. I think that sort of screws up the
Right.
offense. So I think
Exactly.
Fred did a lot of damage to the offense tonight, to be honest. Like, I don't care how many points he scored. Like, I did
Yeah.
not like this game for him or Scotty, but I did like this game for OG and Pascal. So, I mean, that's kind of
Yeah.
where I stand on this. And the only thing with Pascal is, like, if you have a center on you and you don't attack him, I think that's a bad
Hmm.
play. So if he's not hunting that, like, every single time, you have to go at these centers. Like,
Yeah.
they can't stick with you. And if they can stick with you, then you're basically, like, creating a precedent for now other teams. So like I feel like other teams that are going to scout this are going to be like, okay, note to self, don't put slow moving 7-footer on really quick twitchy
Right.
6'10" guy, you know.
For
But
sure.
I wasn't in. Obviously, I'm not in the Knicks locker room. I have no idea what their plan was going into this game. Personally, I don't. I look up and down their roster and I'm like, they really have nobody that can guard this guy. I have no idea how they can stop a player like this. And I'm now like deeply curious to see how they've stopped players that I consider similar to Siakam. Like
Hmm.
I'm just trying to see if they all like how did they like who did like I almost want to go and now study the Knicks. They used to be my hometown team. So yeah, but
Oh, it makes sense.
no, it's very fascinating to me, and I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Thibodeau looked at the rest of the shooters and was just like, okay, we're just going to live with Siakam ISOs, and we're not going to
Yeah.
double off the shooters. But
That
kudos
leaves
to
a
Nick
lot of
Nurse.
opportunities. So
But I
yeah,
mean,
but
kudos to Nick Nurse for then overplaying Malachi Flynn. There was one note that
hmm
there's only one bench player at some point in the third quarter who's gotten more than 10 minutes, and that's Malachi Flynn. And it's like,
right.
wow, how did that happen? Like over Boucher, over Thad Young, guys who've been usually above
Right.
him. But I think it's because, like, as you noticed, like I don't know if you watched that film session that we did, Leo and I did, but like it's like how much space like Malachi is providing as your best, at least percentage
Yeah.
wise 3-point shooter. And to think about it, you say, well, Gary's another guy like that who provides a lot of
Hmm.
space. Otto's another guy who provides a lot of space. And Scotty and Pascal are both guys who thrive, not together, obviously, but at least individually, they thrive with 4 shooters around them. And so if
Right.
you can create those open lanes with those guys, then in theory, with Gary and Otto back, you could have a really good offense, especially if you somehow manage to package Kem and something for a real legit shooting center that you can start. So I think the
Hmm.
Raptors have reasons to be cautiously optimistic after this game, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't I wouldn't throw a party.
Right. Yes.
You know,
It was
it's
it was nice. It was nice to win a game though. So
it was very nice to win a game. I agree. The losing was
yeah.
getting quite ridiculous, and I was getting like really
Yeah.
tired of other fan bases talking shit to the Raptors. Like even Kenny
Yeah.
for real, he created a video saying I'm disappointed in the Toronto Raptors, and I was just
Oh.
like, oh, we got one for Kenny. That was
We
nice.
got one.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
all right. Well, thank
Thanks a
you.
lot, Morgan. I really appreciate you calling in. Have a good night.
Toodles.
Um, Yeah. Okay. So let me. I've been sort of staring at the chat, so I see what you guys are talking about. There's a lot of Barnes, Siakam stuff, and so let me just say that I think Scotty will be fine. Hey, if you want my honest opinion, not a good game for him. Obviously, I've said it 10 times. I don't have to keep saying it. Not a good game for him. This doesn't change my outlook on him at all. It doesn't budge it even a little bit. I realize he's struggling. I realize a lot of young players struggle. Maybe they don't struggle this bad. Maybe they don't score 2 points. But this is the worst half-court offense in the league, guys. There is a reason for that. There's a lot of guys struggling right now. There's literally you can look across the board. There's not one player other than Malachi Flynn who's shooting above a career average on their 3 points. And to consistently roll Scotty Barnes out there at the 3-point line and just kind of ask him space, he's not helping his teammates, and his teammates aren't really helping him. I would like to see him get more of a rhythm. I would be open at this point to staggering lineups, pulling him out really early, bringing him in with the second unit, letting him play with Juancho. I'll be really interested to see how he has chemistry with guys like Precious and OG, like lineups with those two guys, Otto, Thad. I think there's a better part of the season left for him at some point towards maybe end of December, early January. If you recall, there was like a huge slump for him in December last year, and he went balls out into the second half of the season after the All-Star break. So we shall see. But yeah, not a great game for him, but a great win for the Raptors. Gutsy performance. I think it was really great, and you beat a team that you have to catch in the standings. So it's actually much more than just a win. There's so many layers and layers of nuance to this. But I will tell you that if the Raptors lose, I think, for a few games now, I have been cautioning that this was the game. That if the Raptors drop 3 in a row, the season is officially over. And I had always circled this game as the game they had to win to end that. And you can go back with the other chats. I'm not capping at this point for validation or whatever. I always said this was the game. For whatever reason, I had 13 and 19 was my magic number, that they cannot fall to 13 and 19 or the math just gets really hard. And that's not to say that had they lost tonight and then they won the next game versus they win tonight and then they lose the next game, it's not the same thing, because that 13 and 19 is very important. To get your 19th loss before your 13th win, at least for my math, was an incredibly relevant indicator, let's call it. And they managed to avoid that 19th loss. And if you're ever out there and you're wondering how talent evaluators and GMs often look at teams, I think most of the smart ones tend to look at the losses more than the record. The losses matter more, guys. So those L's, to me, you could not get your 19th loss before you got your 14th win. Luckily for the Raptors, they swing it. Not to mention, they actually get a win. And the other part of this equation is they actually end up getting a win over a team that they absolutely have to pass in the standings at some point this season to avoid the play-in, right? I mean, let's be honest. They're the 6th team right now. You're not catching 4, 3, 2, 1 unless something disastrous happens for one of those teams. And you don't want to be in the play-in because you don't want to face those top 2 teams because they will be very tough. So in order to salvage the season, you have to finish at least 5th, ideally 4th, and then you pray that Brooklyn falls. So we live to fight another day, but I will tell you that the next magic number is 2 more losses again. So if you win this game and then you lose 2 more, which means you would, in theory, get your 20th loss before you get your 15th win, now you're in the same situation. So the Raptors, in theory, need to win one of the next 2 games to steer the ship back into positive territory. For me, again, for the analytics. Let's just see. Sorry, would you rather have 100,000 or a pair of Scotty's dirty socks? I gotta tell you, the derogatory comments, who raised you? Some of you people, who raised you? Were you raised by wolves? What's wrong with you? I don't hear the noise, to be honest, but sometimes like people will actually forward me this stuff, and it's like, geez, like you got nothing better to do than to come and like man, some of the stuff on Twitter was like I showed it to my girlfriend and I was just like, can you believe someone would say this about somebody that they don't know in real life? We're talking about basketball. Like we're talking about basketball. Jeez. Daryl came up with the exact right answer. I'd take 100,000 pairs of Scotty socks. Okay, well, there you go. eBay for the win there. Tamberlin asks, when do we think which game Precious is returning? Well, last I heard, Precious was already practicing, so they're ramping him up. I think you should expect him after Christmas. Yeah, for real. Like they really can be. But you know what? Like I gotta tell you. So can I share an inspirational message with anyone out there who may sometimes let some of this noise get to you? Sorry, we're in that second hour of the chat where we're just winding down, and I just want to leave on something a little bit. I mean, it's related to basketball, but it's not completely related to basketball. And so I was feeling a little bit like I created a Twitter account. And to those of you who don't know that, yes, I created a Twitter account. It's Pensari B-Ball. And I saw some of the comments that people had, and there were just people just roasting me. And it's not even about basketball. It's not about, oh, he's wrong about Siakam, which is what I wish people would say, or he really, thinks Scotty's great and he's over optimistic about that. It wasn't that. It was straight up like, it was derogatory shit. It was the type of stuff you wouldn't say on a basketball court. It was definitely the type of stuff you wouldn't say, that no civilized person would say to another civilized person to their face. But this is the internet, and with Twitter where it is right now, people were just free to say this stuff, and people were egging it on, and it just felt like very weird. That was strange, and I got to be honest, it kind of sunk me for a minute. It kind of had me like thinking like, what am I doing to that warrants this level of vitriol? Like I'm just talking my opinion about basketball. You never heard me say Fred Van Brick. You never heard me say derogatory things about a player. You've never heard me speak in a vulgar language, but the way that people address it, it's like I desecrated somebody's grave. And so I was like, okay, what am I doing? Like, what the hell is it? Just, like what's going on here? And then I stumbled across a message that really provided some uplift. So I just want to share it with you guys, and it's incredible, and I want this to be the parting note of the night, and I don't want me to be the parting note of the night. I just want this to be the parting note of the night. Okay.
Now to teach our young men is that there's no emotions with work. Work is just what you do. I mean, like, it's like blinking. You blink, you don't feel happy or sad or any emotion toward blinking. It's just what you do. That's how your work got to be. And every single day, if you show up and you give the best that you have that day, then you can sleep good at night and you're going to be a lot better.
So I think that whatever you're trying to do out there, I'm sure all of you are doing something really productive and cool with your lives. And I'm certainly trying to chase this because I created a trailer 2 years ago saying that I wanted, well, a year ago, not 13 months ago, saying I wanted Pensari basketball to be the #1 Raptors content on YouTube. And it probably ruffled a lot of feathers, and probably people said, like, what the hell are you talking about? And I really, I'm just chasing that. I just want this to be great. I want this channel to be great. I want it to get better. I want these live streams to get better. And I definitely, want the content to improve. I want to become better. Like I realize sometimes when I listen to these, I try to not watch myself, but sometimes I go into these things and I listen to myself and I'm like, wow, you could get a little bit better at speaking. You could research a little bit better. You could learn a little bit more about this subject that you're not so strong at. So I'm just going to keep pushing and getting better. And there have been at least 6 times over the last year or so where the noise has gotten to me a little bit, where it's someone has taken something too far, maybe says something about my mother, or says something that was so personal, or just something very homophobic, or something very derogatory, and it's just giving me a pause. Like, man, if something that I'm doing in this world is creating this much vitriol and this much hate back to me, then I need to stop and figure out what the hell I'm doing. And I've tried to be better the last 3 streams. I think I've been a lot more fair, but I got to tell you, I'm done. I'm done. So there will be no more noise that is going to bother me. There will be no more pauses, because right now I'm going to treat this work like blinking. And I don't want to leave you without telling you who said that. That was Scotty's trainer, Brian Fisher. If you are not following Scotty's trainer and you're a basketball player, you absolutely should follow him. Check out Handle Life on Instagram. He posts uplifting shit all day. He's a really cool person to follow, and I think that everyone out there should really like learn from him. He talks about basketball skills. He talks about life. There's a lot of good content. And you know what? If you scroll through your average Facebook feed or Instagram feed, there's a lot of negativity and a lot of bullshit that will bring you down. It will bring you to a lower state of mind. And I gotta say that the people who are constantly flooding my feed with positivity, thank you guys. To the people in this chat who've taken the time to be here past midnight, thank you guys. I really do appreciate it. I promise you that I'm not letting the noise, I'm not hearing the noise anymore. I'm just blinking. I'm going to treat my work like blinking. And to those people out there saying, I hate Penn State basketball, this guy's trash, all that stuff, you know what? You can just watch it grow. Have a good night, guys. Peace. Timberland, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I gave you a follow back on Twitter. I really like the stuff you're saying. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much. I really, really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Make sure to hit like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Peace.